Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the person living next door, the quiet neighbor who waves politely, who takes out the trash every Thursday night, who smiles awkwardly when your eyes meet in the hallway, has just been arrested for a series of murders that spanned years. The news spreads quickly. Reporters crowd the street. Police tape wraps around a once ordinary house, and suddenly a question echoes through everyone's mind. How could someone like that exist among us, unnoticed? Because the truth is far more unsettling than we want to admit. Serial killers rarely look like monsters. They rarely resemble the grotesque villains portrayed in horror movies. In fact, many appear disturbingly normal, sometimes even charming. They hold jobs, they laugh at jokes, they blend into society so seamlessly that people often describe them with the same haunting phrase after their arrest. He seemed so normal. But how can someone capable of extreme brutality maintain such an ordinary mask? Is evil something you can see, or something that hides quietly beneath the surface? Pause for a moment and consider this paradox. Human beings evolved to detect danger. For thousands of years, our survival depended on recognizing threats. Predators lurking in the dark, enemies approaching from the horizon. Our brains are wired to notice subtle cues, a shift in tone, a flicker of aggression in someone's eyes, the tension in a room that signals something isn't right. And yet, some individuals manage to slip past every one of those alarms. Not once, not twice, but sometimes for decades. They walk through life wearing a carefully constructed persona, a psychological disguise so convincing that friends, coworkers, and even family members never suspect the darkness beneath, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if the most dangerous people in the world are not the ones who appear threatening, but the ones who appear perfectly harmless? History provides disturbing evidence. Many infamous serial killers were described as polite, intelligent, even likable. They volunteered in their communities. They maintained relationships. Some even had families who never suspected the horrors unfolding behind closed doors. This contradiction forces us into a deeper, more disturbing question. What kind of mind can separate cruelty from normal life so completely? How can someone commit acts of unimaginable violence and then calmly return to their daily routine as if nothing happened? To understand this, you have to step into a psychological landscape that most people never explore. Because serial killers are not simply crazy. That explanation is far too simple. Madness implies chaos, an uncontrollable breakdown of thought and behavior. But many serial killers operate with chilling precision. They plan, they strategize, they adapt. In some cases, they even study human behavior themselves, learning how to manipulate people, gain trust, and avoid suspicion. Which leads to another unsettling realization. What if the mind of a serial killer is not just broken, but structured around a completely different set of rules? Rules that allow someone to detach from empathy, suppress guilt, and view other human beings not as individuals, but as objects. When you begin examining these minds closely, patterns start to emerge. Not random patterns, but psychological traits,
dark characteristics that appear again and again across different killers, different cultures, and different eras. Traits that shape how they think, how they manipulate, how they justify their actions, and perhaps most disturbingly, traits that can sometimes exist in milder forms within ordinary people. And this is where the real discomfort begins. Because once you start recognizing these patterns, you may realize that the line separating normal behavior from monstrous behavior is not always as clear as we would like to believe. Which leads us to the deeper question: what are the psychological traits that allow a person to become a serial killer? To answer that, we must explore the hidden roots of the human mind. To understand serial killers, we must begin with a difficult truth. The human mind contains darkness, not metaphorical darkness, but real psychological impulses, aggression, domination, revenge, that exist in every individual to some degree. The difference is that most people learn to control these impulses, but some individuals never do. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung believed that every human being possesses what he called the shadow. The shadow is the hidden part of the psyche that contains suppressed desires, violent impulses, and unacceptable thoughts. Most people bury this shadow deep within their subconscious. But when the shadow is ignored for too long, it does not disappear. It grows, and in rare cases, it begins to dominate the personality. Many serial killers show signs of this psychological imbalance from an early age. Childhood trauma, neglect, humiliation, and abuse often play a role. These experiences can distort a person's emotional development, creating a deep sense of resentment towards the world. Over time, this resentment transforms into something darker: hatred. But the hatred is rarely directed openly. Instead, it becomes hidden beneath layers of normal behavior. Another philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, warned that when human beings repress their instincts for too long, those instincts can return in destructive ways. He famously wrote, "Beware that when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster." For some individuals, this transformation happens gradually. They begin to see other people not as individuals, but as objects, or worse, as tools. This mindset allows them to detach emotionally from their victims. Psychologists often describe this as dehumanization, the ability to strip others of their humanity in one's mind. Once empathy disappears, cruelty becomes much easier. And that is where the first dark trait appears. Serial killers often share a set of psychological traits that shape their behavior. The first trait is lack of empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel the emotions of another person. Without it, suffering becomes meaningless. The second trait is manipulation. Many serial killers are highly skilled at reading people. They understand fear, trust, vulnerability, and they use this knowledge to control situations. The third trait is narcissism. Some killers see themselves as superior beings, more intelligent, more powerful, more deserving of control over life and death. The fourth trait is emotional detachment. They can commit horrific acts without experiencing guilt. The fifth trait is compartmentalization. This allows them to separate their violent behavior from their normal life. They may commit murder one night and go to work the next morning as if nothing happened. The sixth trait is obsession with power. Many killers are not motivated by rage alone. They are motivated by control. The final trait is psychological gratification. The act itself becomes addictive. Each crime reinforces the next. This combination of traits creates a psychological system that feeds itself, and once it begins, stopping becomes extremely difficult. Understanding these traits is not just about studying criminals, it is about understanding human nature itself. Because the same psychological forces exist on a much smaller scale in ordinary life. Manipulation, dominance, resentment. These forces shape politics, business, and social relations.